Hey guys, you are now listening to part 2 of this episode with my good friend and OG raver, Brandon Gray. In part 1 of this episode, we discussed how to balance your professional life with raving as you get older, the misconceptions that come along with this hobby, and how raving changes when you have kids and your friends grow up and move on. So that's kind of everything you missed so far. Definitely go back and listen to part 1 if you are just catching part 2. Doesn't matter, but I think you guys will really enjoy some of the stories in there. Right before this episode, or part 2, where we left off. So Brandon and I were really talking about what to do when you get older and your friends start to outgrow raving. So, he definitely experienced that. He actually took a pretty long break from attending music festivals and then came back into it. So obviously, people change, there are different priorities, you start a family. So that's kind of like where we left off, like what to do in that scenario. And Brandon and I actually connected through Lunchbox, the anti-theft hydration pack company. And so we talk a little bit about how Brandon kind of found this whole new rave fam with the Lunchbox team. And despite there being, a 20-year age gap, it just really is irrelevant. If you find your people, that's all that matters. So yeah, I can't stress that enough. That's the whole point about these two parts, is that age is just a number and it really doesn't matter if you love what you're doing. So keep doing your thing, keep raving, keep attending music festivals as long as you want. But with all that being said, that is where we left off. So we are continuing the conversation into how Brandon got involved with the Lunchbox team. So let's roll right into part 2.
But can we talk a little bit about Lunchbox too? Like how you connected with the team?
Yeah. So that's all started in 2018, EDC Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And Homebase. Lunchbox was just starting to come out with a product. They were fixing to hit Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my unique medical stuff, I carry in a medical bag filled with needles and insulins and then part of that I carry Narcan kits and stuff that we use for medical intervention stuff when we find people who are in need of help. And so I have a pretty big med kit that goes with me into festivals. And EDC Orlando, I mean, all festivals have a problem with theft, but EDC Orlando especially seemed to have a really big problem. And I remember we were almost pickpocketed 3 times at EDC Orlando. And so it was just by happenstance. So the first 2 days it was my wife, and some of it was just blatant, outright people coming up to talk to us, divide your attention, try to reach into your bags. Kitty, sorry.
You're good.
People try to reach into your bags and take whatever they can. And that was part of the problem with kind of the clear bag thing, is now everything that you have isn't really any more secure.
Right.
And it's all a window into exactly what you have. They don't have to rummage around. They know exactly where to reach for it because it's right there. It's a clear bag. And I remember the last set was Cascade that year. Sorry, I'm moving cats.
You're good.
Was Cascade that year. And somebody reached into my bag and my med kit. And again, it carried at that point in time probably $5,000 worth of medication into it that I need to live off of.
Yeah.
And so somebody reached in and tried to pull that kit out.
I can't believe people. Yeah.
And I mean, again, they don't know what it is. Luckily, it was so wedged down there that they couldn't. But Jen turned to me at the end of the set and said, "Your bag's wide open." And I was like, and it scared me because those are things not only that I need if we've come across people that have overdosed at festivals and other stuff that, there's a reason we carry Narcan and some other stuff, with us. So not only for not having those things, but also the medicine that I need at an event to survive. So it just so happened that I stumbled across Tom and I contacted him right after and said, "Hey, here's the dimensions of my kit. Will the Lunchbox kind of fit that? And here's what I need it for."
Yeah.
And then that conversation started spitballing into some of the things that I wanted to start up for a health and safety program, some of the pilot programs that most people outside of Lunchbox don't know that we've even ran, which are EMS pilot programs using quick response teams to help at like eForest. We did a pilot program at and stuff. And so all that just started spitballing, kind of from there. And it started just on a journey that I never thought that I would be involved with a bunch of and I use the term rave kids with the term of endearment to it, not but on a journey of a side kind of business project that is kind of in some ways my main business project, because I've retired from a lot of the other stuff, and just again started building bags, wow. And getting into the scene that way.
I had no idea that whole story. That's crazy.
Yeah. So at that point in time, it was me, Tommy, Meredith, and Liz, which I don't think you ever met Liz because she had departed. But and I was kind of the fourth amigo, on that team. And so awesome.
Now we'll be staying together at Electric Forest. I love that whole story. That's how Brendan and I connected through Lunchbox. But also I think it's just a great way to say, like, not only are you involved in the company, but now when you attend festivals and stuff like that, you have this whole new rave fam that you can go to shows with and attend events with. And I think it's something that's like really, really special. Not only the relationship, but obviously Lunchbox in itself. And we have a group camp at Electric Forest whenever that happens. That will be amazing. I can't wait.
And again, for the people that are worried, like your friends are leaving the scene and what, it happens. I mean, it happens no matter what age you're at for whatever reason. But again, and why those people around you make those memories and make some of that stuff special, I guess it depends on what makes the event for you. There are still there's your meetups, and the stuff that you've built over the years, your raveculturecast community that's growing and great and thriving. There's I'm involved in the Jason Ross, Atlas fam, group through quarantine that has gotten me through a lot of that. And so I know there'll be meetup opportunities there to do that type stuff. There's the Lunchbox fam that we have. And there's a reason why we started that for that was kind of the brainchild of me and Meredith and going, we want to have a community of people and to do stuff with, because things are more fun. And as you get older, that community starts to drop away and you need to find new places to find that community. And there are those places out there,
right?
So you don't, well, I won't discourage anybody from going and doing an event alone. I think it's a great thing to be able to do an event and not worry about what your friend wants to see versus what you want to see. You get to do whatever the hell you want to, type stuff. And that can be really fun and exciting. But, I know people at these events that are in their 50s. There's going to be somebody, or again, learn to not be self-conscious that the person that you're enjoying the show with is 21 years old. So what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Again, so what? It's again, once I got over that mindset of being the old person, and I guess it still creeps up from time to time. I'll be the first to admit there's still times that I'm like, God, I'm getting a little old for this. Or in certain circles, I feel uncomfortable because either some of the risks that are being taken or some of the other stuff. And in those points in time, I just step away. Like that's my choice to be either in that or not.
Yeah.
It's not a reflection on the scene of something that one person or one group does. I can just choose to be a part of it or not. Or I can choose to be the opposite of that. I don't, we all hear about events where, people are at that they're taking advantage of people that are inebriated or whatever. So be the antithesis to that. Be the safe space.
Yeah.
Be I think anybody who knows me, I mean, maybe you can attest to this, Emma, you know, more, knows that if you were to ever have a problem at an event, go to Brandon. You know, there's nobody
100%.
that, I mean, I even had a, all right, true story. So I do a lot with the LGBT community. I even had a friend at one point in time come up to me, hold my hand. He's a guy. And he's like, "You're going to be my husband real quick." And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because this creeper guy over there is trying to be whatever. And I need you to be my big burly husband." And I'm like, "All right." You know? So it doesn't matter guy or girl for me. I mean, I'll do that for anybody. Just come up and give me the signal and, you know, I'll get somebody. But, you know, and again, I think, you know, and that's always been part of the scene too. There's always been predators. There's always been, you know, people that aren't into it for the right intentions.
Of course,
People who are in the crowd to pickpocket, not for the music at all. You know, whatever the case might be. But, you know, when you find a good group in the scene, and you can, you know, still, and you find your way to relax and be yourself. I mean, that's where the big beauty of it all is.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I love this. We touched on so many good things today. And the last thing I'll just say about the age thing too, is also like, you touched on it before about the types of events. That's the other thing I would say. Like, I think it's different when you're in it. Like, say you're 25 right now and you love Sunset Music Festival or, you know, whatever it is. And you're like, oh, I want to keep going to that the rest of my life. Like, it just, I feel like it's a natural progression, and you just have interest change, priorities change. And like, I never thought, you know, I will always go to EDC Las Vegas, but I feel the same about Ultra. Like, there are some that I'm like, you know what? I personally feel like I outgrew it a little bit, but now I'm interested in international travel or other events and transformational festivals, which I think naturally have an older crowd. And to your point, I can afford now to go international and maybe travel while I'm abroad and then hit up a festival and things like that. So I think you can just experiment with different types of events as well and just find where you're comfortable. But there's going to be a different type of crowd, literally every single place that you go. So I think there's tons of options, and age is just a number. I love everything that we touched on.
It is. I think, I mean, E-Force might replace EDC for me, given the vibes.
I think we're going to love it.
And how everybody says, but I love EDC. I love what Pasquale's done. I know the people that handed off EDC to Pasquale and what shape it was kind of in, and then how Pasquale kind of took it over and transformed it, and just what his thoughts are into it. You know, I would recommend to people, like, I always want to have that one bass that one festival that's my rock, my bass, that I'm like, I'm going to every year. Screw it.
Yeah,
you know, and that might be EDC. That you know, right now that's EDC Vegas and EDC Orlando, because it's so close where I am. You know, but that might turn into E-Forest or something else. For a while, that was Ultra, but again, that for other reasons outside of the music and the other stuff, because I still love Ultra for the music. That's kind of moved from Ultra, but so yeah, I mean, I would encourage you to, you know, it's all right to have EDC still be your base. Just keep on adding to it as much as you
of
can.
course.
You know, or try something else. Like I said, I am a trance and house head. I have been for 25 years now. Me going to Wakan, that was like, what am I doing? And I had the absolute best time. You know, so, you know, do I think that I would get along? And I saw your video on which festivals were on your unpacking my bags. I'm not saying I do watch your content. I know you don't think I do, but I do. Lost Lands, not going to be. I just know from the music and whatnot. And while I would still try it if given the opportunity, and I had friends that were kind of going, I'm never going to discount, and I'm never going to disparage other people's music and what they like. And I think that's a big thing in the scene kind of right now. There's always been the techno snobs and the you know, house snobs, and if it's not trance, it's not what, you know, whatever. One of the biggest shocks to me coming back is music had changed so much. So and even at events. So you always had like movement and those types of events that were techno, basically. You know, some house, but mainly it was a techno movement, was a techno event. For a large portion of it, ultra was, you know, house and some techno kind of event. It's only been in recent years that they've started getting, you know, Wakan artists there and whatnot, becoming more other genres. But for the most part, you know, that's what it was. I remember that's going to be a shock to Emma's heart because I know she loves him so much. I remember the first time I heard Seven Lions or Elenium, and I was like, God, this is beautiful. And then the break would happen, and it would be, for me at that time, was like nails across the chalkboard. And that's when I felt old, because I'm like, what the hell are these kids headbanging to? This is not headbanging. Or what did you do with that beautiful vocal? You ruined it. And I remember turning to Jen at a Seven Lions set going, God, how do people listen to this shit? Right. Now I love Seven Lions.
Yeah. Yeah. It just changes.
Yeah. So sorry, Jeff. I love what you do. Don't hold it against me, but or Elenium. I mean, I like Elenium shows now. So your musical taste change the more that you're exposed to it. So even though there's a lot on the Wakan label that I did not know and wasn't into, still going and being open-minded there and learning that, hey, I can enjoy a Dirt Monkey set in the right environment with the right people, with, you know, again, people have this idea in their mind of, you know, those are Wook events or, you know, whatever, sector shows, the whole 9 yards. And I look at it and go, and, you know, to some extent you have that in the back of your mind of yeah, those just aren't my people. And then you go to especially something like Wakan, which is a totally different culture event. And you go, maybe I misjudge people, you know, and you have that reckoning and then appreciation for that portion of the scene. And so I would also encourage people to try other stages and other artists. And I do, and I say this to people at EDC all the time. Everybody maps out their schedule so incredibly much at EDC to where I have to split this set to go see this one, and I have to do this and I have to do that. And one of the biggest advices I give to people is give yourself a 3-hour block. You're going to see that artist again sometime, you know, especially if you do enough shows. I mean, we know that I love Joyride, but Joyride I can see at another festival, you know, and I've seen before. So maybe I spend that block and go see something that takes me out of my comfort zone. Or something that Pasquale put at that festival for me to go discover, you know, like the mini bar or, you know, a drag queen show or a parade, you know, just something. And you know, realizing that those are the things, and I think that's what eForce encapsulates that I'm really interested to do.
Same.
Is I want to go skipping through the forest with you finding fairy boxes.
Yes.
I don't know.
Oh my fucking God. I know. You're literally like reading my mind right now, which is why I'm so excited to hear, because I could talk about this shit forever, but it's so true. It's so true. And like you don't know until you're in it. And obviously it changes over time, but I could not agree with you more. Like the thing I'm most excited about, even looking at lineups, you know, for events that were supposed to happen in 2020, which will hopefully maybe happen this year. I'm just so excited to see the people who are like the smaller house artists or the smaller techno artists who are like, they're just coming up, because that set that they're going to do is going to be fucking amazing and memorable. And you can say you saw them before they blew up and things like that. But it's the smaller stages that I'm really excited for. Cause like you said, I might have my 7 Lions or Oliver Heldens who I never want to miss. But then in the meantime, there are the people who I've never seen before. Like that's going to be the priority now, because like you just said, you're going to see the bigger people time and time again. They're going to be the headliners on a lot of the lineups, but even the smaller festivals too. I feel like the more boutique festivals are going to be interesting as well after this is all over, because I feel like they're going to be popular.
Well, they are. Well, 2 points on to that to bring up. So I think and I think everybody falls in this trap. It's not younger crowd versus older. I think there's a sense of FOMO. Like Emma's going to gasp for a second. I miss 7 Lions at Imagine to go experience something new, and Jade Cicada, I think, absolutely hated. Well, didn't hate.
Wasn't for you.
It definitely wasn't for Jen. Definitely wasn't kind of for me, although I could see where in the right combination of things, it maybe could be. But I hear how beautiful and life-changing, and one of your favorite 7 lion sets you've ever seen was that set. And I'm like, God, how did I miss that? And then just missing you, kind of there. Because we hadn't officially met by that point in time. We didn't officially meet until EDC that year.
Yeah.
EDC Orlando.
Oh my God.
So that was one. So getting over that fear of FOMO, there's going to be stuff that you're, just going to miss. And instead of looking at it at the thing that you missed, appreciate what you had and the experience that you got. And you can't always. And again, that's why I know people that split sets, and I know people that will hit 3 different stages in an hour block just so they say they got to see so and so play whatever. And again, different strokes for different folks, but I'm like, I can't get into the music if I'm hopping stages, right? And hopping artists and kind of doing that. And then on to the fact of smaller artists. I think one of the wonderful things that quarantine has given us is, and something that is reminiscent, kitty time. Yeah, kitty times. Something that is reminiscent of the older days is Twitch streaming, and some of what the artists have kind of done is without. So back in the day, and I'm not going to name too many names in some of this, but there wasn't this sense of stardom between artists and fans. So I remember, God, I want to say, somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I want to say Tiesto's first show at Ultra was 2002. Might have been 2003. Somewhere right in that frame. And I remember Tiesto playing his set and then coming down in the crowd and partying, like literally walking off stage, coming around and like dancing with us in the crowd.
Yeah.
Right. I remember doing, Miami Music Week events with Paul Van Dyke and Tiesto and that type of stuff. And it's not that I was big and deep into the scene, like, I wasn't a manager, I wasn't a promoter, I was, whatever. It was just, that's what you did. There was an event that, God, it's going to be again early 2000s. Above and Beyond was just starting. And it was for one of the record tours. Maybe it was 2004 or 2005. They played at a small record store here in Atlanta. There was literally 9 of us that showed up. Like, that's how few people knew Above and Beyond at that point in time. I think it was their first U.S. really appearances. And we just hung out with them for the afternoon. Ordered pizza, sun on decks.
Yeah.
And then we all left, including them, left from there to go. They were doing a club set that night at a club. And we left and went to the club with them. And then, kind of did that. And then we turned to them after the event or after the club, because they were sitting talking to us on stage. We're like, hey, we're going to go after party at a friend's house. Do you guys want to come?
It's awesome.
And Tony, Pavo, and Jono all hopped in a car with us and drove to a friend's house. And we had a recording studio there. We had DJ deck set up and stuff. And we literally till probably 8 or 9 in the morning.
It's so dope.
Went and did it. I've done the same with Gabriel and Dresden. Just so the point is that, again, those people. Part of my worry in the scene slightly comes from, and I don't want to offend anybody in this, but comes from, I'll use it as an example, comes from the bass nectar mindset.
You read my mind.
I know. It's well, and it's happening too. I love Ella Stream, don't get me wrong, but it's happening. I see it happen in all sorts of communities. So it's not just one. It's not just one fan base. I don't want to stereotype. Anybody. Hell, it probably happens on Cascade Connect too. But where DJs are put up on this pedestal of being larger than life and or having some spiritual, religious, transformation, whatever type of thing that comes with it. And, I've looked at that in the scene, and it's part of what worries me is that, again, this thought that they're not just people. and they are. And I think that's where we are in the, or where the scene needs to remember. And I think where the scene needs to, even the artist needs to take a step back and at some point in time go, hey, I'm just a person like you. And I think for some extent the live streams have done that. Like,
I was going to say, humanize them a little bit. Yeah.
And it, for me personally, I'll just talk about, Jason Ross and I mean, Jason Ross, at one point in time was doing just Zoom calls with his fans, which was awesome. I mean, I sat down, got to talk like you and I are talking with Jason Ross. And then he would do his Thursday shows that were music he wanted to play. And it lets you into this insight into what that artist was like. And even though, and this realization that a lot of people don't have, that they like a whole wide range of music that they can't play in their sets. Prime example is Seven Lions just did another Free Soul Friday 2 days ago. And, Emma was spinning some bass house, and, Jeff started doing a kind of a housey set too. And that's are things that he would never be able to play.
I have to go watch that. Oh my God.
on stage. And they're just messing around, letting you see into their life and, talking and connecting with the fans. And I think, that's one of the good things that's happened in quarantine that I hope continues to some extent with their tour schedules and everything else that they have, that they realize the benefit of being able to put themselves and their personality out there in a way that humanizes them, and I think strengthens their fan base, because it makes that connection. Of, hey, I know this artist now, and I know what makes them tick. And even the smaller ones coming up, like there's LP Gobi, I think is her name.
LP Joby. I love her.
I cute as a button. Insane talent. And I can't wait to see her live. But I would have never discovered, not say I would have never discovered her, but it was much easier just to discover during this quarantine time where I could tune into Twitch and I could see all sorts of different people. So I really hope
she's coming out. It'll be out at this point probably, but I just interviewed her on the Festival Insider podcast.
I did not know that.
And I'm obsessed with her, and I've been DMing with her, and I literally love her. She's like, she's everything you just described. Like, there's that level of, I feel so strongly about everything you just said. Like, they need to still stay connected with their fans and still be in touch and still like have that human aspect of them, because it is like everybody who I know you're probably thinking about, it's like the ego is involved. Like and I think this year probably humbled everybody a little bit, because all the things that they love were taken away from them and they haven't been able to play shows. And I think that's, the live streams have been very intimate, and it's been cool to see people inside their homes, and you can see which artists are going like above and beyond and are just doing like chats, or like, let's DJ together, or like send me your mixes and like I'll do a song with you. Like, I think all of that stuff has been really, really cool to see. And then yes, like I always feel like at the end of the day, you get what you put out into the world. So the people who have ego involved or are in it for the wrong reasons or take advantage of their fans, like anything along those lines, I feel like it's going to come to light eventually, which is what we saw happen with a lot of people this past year.
Well, and it's vice versa as well. So the fans have to have respect for the artist's privacy as well, and get. I mean, it's a two-way street there, because I understand that artists are like, it's probably hard to be a public figure. I mean, I wouldn't know. I'm not a public figure, but I mean, all my adoring fans from all the mail they send me. But you just. Like it's that two-way street of setting those boundaries, but then again, I think for the artists, being in touch with the scene and still remember, because a lot of them were ravers just like us. I mean, Cascade, I remember hearing an interview from him a couple years ago. I think he did on Larry King, where he talked about, I was slinging records in the ultra, parking lot to anybody that would listen. I would set up decks in the parking lot just so I could get people to listen to me. And I was attending those events and doing those things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this, but Pasquale still at EDC will put on a mask and, go in the crowd and still party. You
still have to be a fan. You have to be a fan still.
Yeah. And so I think that from the artist side of it, I was joking around with Seven Live with Jeff and had said, you know, he had talked about wanting to do shows and, you know, wanting them back. And I'm like, well, come party with us in GA. Like, we got a spot for you.
Yeah.
You know, and I like, I wish that was you know, more of a possibility in that, but it could be in the scene if the fans brought down there and wouldn't model, you know, kind of
I
in the
agree.
crowd. Does that make sense?
Yep. 100%. It's going to be so interesting. I mean, this is like kind of leads me into like the last section of this, but it's going to be very interesting, like across the board, how everything goes down after this. And I mean, I'm like, obviously I'm excited for the fans and like for our feelings when we get to return to shows and music festivals, but like, I just can't imagine how the artists will feel. And like, I'm curious to see how that comes across in their sets. Like, are they going to be more vocal on the microphone? Like, is that going to be reflected in the set or the stuff they put up on the screen? Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be an energy that is very, very different now between the artist and the fans in the crowd when we eventually have shows come back. So one, what do you think about that? And two, how do you personally feel about attending shows again and things like that? I know have you finished with the COVID vaccine? Are you fully vaccinated?
I got my second one on Thursday.
Awesome.
So we're recording this on Valentine's Day on a Sunday. And so I'm feeling great.
Good.
I haven't had really any side effects from it, and ready to kind of start exploring, get back out there. So I mean, how I think it'll be back, I have a fear, and this just comes from my harm reduction days. You know, I was one of the first, I don't want to say co-founders of Dance Safe, but I was one of the first people in Dance Safe very early on, 20 some odd years ago. And so, you know, worrying about, again, how people party and how they stay safe and what they do is always at a forethought in there. And I haven't been part of that, a part of Dance Safe in well number of years, but I've gone on to do other harm reduction organizations and stuff. And it's something that we talk about on the back end is those first couple events back. We are very worried about people containing themselves and being within limits, and you know, it's just human nature. Like, I want to party and I haven't been able to party, and I'm going to do it all now, right? So there is some apprehension to that, just, you know, worrying about people in the scene and how it all does. But I think the energy is going to be amazing. I think the energy from the artists and the artists that I've talked to and kind of know, and you know, even what they've put out so far in some park and raves and just other stuff. And again, it feels differently for them to do that, or it feels differently for them to do a Twitch stream, because you don't have that back and forth energy and play necessarily with the crowd that you get at a club or at a large festival event. So I think it's going to be very emotional for them. And again, if for most DJs, anything that is emotional for them shows through in their music. So I think for all involved, it's kind of the old adage, you never know what you had until you lost it, type of thing. And whether, you know, being fitting that's on Valentine's Day, that's kind of a relationship adage, but it's also an adage here as well, that you don't know what you have until you lost it. And we lost it this past year. And so, you know, there's been a lot of soul searching of going, did I appreciate those sets that I saw as much as I absolutely could have appreciated those sets when I was in it? Or did I start taking them for granted? Was my 11th music festival just kind of going through the motions, or did I really appreciate it for what it was? You know, and now will I be more cognizant of appreciating it for what it is now? You know, type thing. And I think so. Do I think they'll happen? It's the question that I get, number one.
Tune in to the next episode. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Let's leave that as a cliffhanger. No. I've talked to a lot of people in the scene at all different levels of the scene, whether they be artists or whether they be, you know, some people I know that work for Insomniac or different other promoters and stuff. I think, especially for something like EDC, if there's anybody that I trust to pull off an event, it's Pasquale.
Mm-hmm.
And to do it right. I mean,
Right.
I think a lot of people can try to pull off an event for the sake of having an event. I think some people are trying, but will it be a well-run,
Will it be safe?
event, everything else. I trust Pasquale and an EDC to look over every detail. And I truly believe they would have had it last October if they could have gotten all those logistics in place.
Yeah, I was just going to say they've had the time to prepare.
And given an extra 6-7 months to do that. The big question is can we get enough people vaccinated to help that take the load off of and make it even more safe? And I think we're on the way to doing that. I will be in attendance whenever it happens. Would I have been in attendance if I wasn't vaccinated? I have slightly other different concerns there because of health and what. I mean, I've been strictly quarantined for 11 months. I for the most part. So, if I wasn't vaccinated, I probably would not be going.
Fair enough.
I don't believe. I mean, clubs in Atlanta really haven't shut down at all, and it's still one of those problems that I have that they're open. They're not socially distanced. There's no masks. There's no nothing else. And there's this undercurrent of the culture that is YOLO. Screw it. I'm going to live my life.
Yep.
I can't take it any longer. And it's funny to me. And again, I don't. Everybody makes their own decisions, so I don't want to seem like I'm coming down on anybody. But I had this discussion with some of Marcus Schultz's staff and some writers that I know that have been attending events down in Miami and throwing events. And it's a sore subject for me because for me, if you're going to have a plur culture and say that this is your culture, how do you then say, I don't care about anybody else but me? Like that's juxtaposed to what most of us believe the plur culture is, which is I'm going to have respect and unity and everything else for you just as much as myself. So I'm going to put your needs out there just as much ahead of my needs. And so, sure, I would love to have done Green Velvet this weekend. That's in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But, and even if I was vaccinated, and my vaccine had taken effect, I still got to give a couple weeks before, it's still not 100% sure. We're still not sure whether I can spread it to somebody else. There's still a lot of unknowns that go with that. And so there's still a lot of, and then again, not that I feel that people look up to me in the scene, or whatnot, but I have a lot of friends in the scene and again, being an older raver and everybody else, and somebody might come along and go, oh, well, Brandon's doing shows.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's okay for me to do shows and to do that. So again, I think that's one of the things that we're just, it's hard. And I've talked to a lot of people that feel the same way that I do, that, there's almost two camps in the EDM scene right now. And I'm just ready for when there's not that split, where we have a good way that is a responsible way to kind of get back into it, and a couple safe ways to do it. And I just booked my RV for EDC, like I said. I changed my airline tickets around a little bit to accommodate that. I've told you have a place to sleep in my RV if you want to come down to for Vegas.
That might be happening.
Yeah. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, if EDC doesn't happen, I think I'm going to keep it this year and just go to the Grand Canyon.
I was just going to say that's not a bad idea, because I ended up getting my ticket went through. My camping did not go through yet. But like, honestly, if I'm already mentally thinking that it's going to be that weekend, I miss Vegas so fucking much. Maybe it's just worth going, but I don't know. I appreciate your opinion on everything.
Yeah, it might be a great mental health break, and that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when EDC does, then we keep our tickets and we go. I really do think, from the people that I've spoken to again, and this hasn't been conversations with Pasquale or anything of that nature, but it has been with people in Insomniac. It's been with people that I know in government and just other stuff, and just knowing the way that government kind of works in that. The city wants it to happen. The state wants it to happen.
Yeah.
Pasquale wants it to happen. I truly think that Live Nation will institute a vaccine
Status
passport,
check.
basically.
Yeah.
That'll help ease that burden. I truly do think that Pasquale, they will set up COVID testing sites specifically for EDC attendees. That you have to have a COVID test 2 days before. So you arrive to Vegas and you
still
COVID
have to
test.
get tested. Yeah.
Yeah, you still have to get tested. And I think they're going to figure out a way to make that follow your wristband. So your wristband doesn't work unless it's been checked, to, against a COVID list. And,
I like that.
Whatever else has to work. And I think that's the way that they're kind of leaning in that. And I think if we can get to, but by the same token, I also believe in personal responsibility. I mean, I will still wear a mask, at EDC.
Yeah, you just read my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, heck, for most of us in rave culture, you were wearing masks or booths or, something anyway. So, you're
until we're in the clear, you kind of have to. I mean,
but you already were.
I know. I know.
I look at the stages. I don't understand why I look at shows now and pictures of shows that I see and nobody's wearing a mask. And I'm like, well, you were all wearing booths and pashminas and everything before this. So why is it that hard to do that now? But
it's interesting because I kind of I feel very, very similarly to everything you just said. I definitely believe in the personal responsibility. And, you have events coming up like UBW, for example, which is in April in Texas. And I know every state has been its own world, and Florida's its own world, and Texas is its own world. And it's different. You're in Georgia, I'm in New Jersey and New York have been pretty strict this whole time. But, I had tickets to UBW and I'm still going back and forth on what to do. But part of me, this is going to sound weird, but it's two things for me. One, because it's been this long without events, part of me is I just want to wait a little bit longer. I've already waited this long. I don't mind waiting until, a little bit more. And then the other part is also financially, everybody's in a different place financially, but it's been saving. I'm personally spending money on a house and I want a car. You know what I mean? There have been other priorities that have popped up for me, which I can't believe I'm saying this, that I'm I'd rather spend money on that right now than a festival. Yeah. And it's crazy that I can even say that, but then, at the same time, my parents finally got their vaccine appointments for March, which to me has been the biggest relief, because I've been oh my God, the people I really see are my fiance and my parents. So, once they're vaccinated, I'll even feel better about it, about maybe traveling, even if you're traveling safely and coming home, just staying home. I work from home. I'm lucky. I can quarantine for 2 weeks or 10 days or whatever it may be. But, things like EDC, this is my other question. So you go and see events like the Super Bowl, which look like a packed house in Florida. And then you hear things well, everybody was COVID tested before they went in and blah, blah, blah. And so then there's the other half of me that's well, eventually we do have to open up, and eventually we do have to get to a place where we can start having events, and maybe it's reduced capacity and maybe there's all these measures being taken. So what's the difference between those measurements being taken in May versus in September? I guess it's the amount of people who have been vaccinated, but if they can do it in a way where there's multi tests being taken place or a vaccination check, and you wear a mask the entire time, can we safely pull that off so that all these people can have their jobs back and fans can attend events again and artists can play again? I don't know. I'm torn on it. I feel if there's enough safety measures in place, of course, I would love to see festivals come back this summer if they can do that.
Yeah. I mean, Ubi's going to be a very big litmus test if Disco Dummy and the rest of them can. And I think the world's going to kind of look to that to see, can we contact trace after that? What was the risk and exposure? How many of those people landed sick? What did they pull it off in a way that delivered what they promised? Which was 50% capacity. They're even doing it with a camping component, this year. So 50% capacity, mask the entire time, yada, yada, yada. Are they able to do that and get it off? So I think part of the problem from a promoter standpoint of it, and maybe MJ or some other interviews that you can have in the future might shed some better light on this than I can. because I only have secondhand knowledge of speaking, but nobody wants to be the liability. Like you don't, or for a lot of people in the scene, they don't want to be. There definitely are some unscrupulous festival promoters and owners that would do just about anything and everything and screw it. But I think for most of the big names in the scene, there is a sense of responsibility, and there is a sense of, if not only for the fans, just for their brand. Like, can you imagine what the press would say about EDC? Not only all the other problems that come with running a massive festival like EDC, and some of the negative press that you get, and just everything else that people want to harp on, but then if it turned into a super spreader event, like what that would, the negative publicity and everything else that could kind of come from that. So there's definitely some value in wanting to do it right. And I applaud Ubi. You and I've talked, because I'm debating, Ubi as well. Part of it in the back of my mind though is like, would I rather my first event be Ubi, which is a great lineup and a great event, and not to dog it, or do I want my first event back to be me walking through the tunnel at EDC from the campground and literally, being a 42-year-old man crying at that point in time? Like, do I want my first one back to be just an event, or do I want it to be the event? I don't know.
Questions.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm prepared. Where I take my personal responsibility of it is, even though by that point in time I'll be well vaccinated, and I've been safe through this whole thing, I'm still prepared to quarantine when I come home.
Yeah,
I think that's the difference from hitting the club events. My difference from people that are hitting the club every weekend versus going to like an EDC is, it's impossible for you for most people. And I think if you're honestly talking about it, they're not if they're hitting the club every weekend, they're not quarantining, when they're not at the club. It's not like the club's the only place they're going.
Yeah.
So am I prepared to be able to do an EDC, to go through whatever measures I need to go through to get there, to be as safe as I can while I'm there, and then to even take it a step further and say, when I come back, I'm going to quarantine for 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
100%. I quarantine here right now.
Exactly.
I mean, at least my wife gets to go to work at the hospital. I get to have Zoom meetings with Emma, and the rest of the team. My cats are my colleagues right now. So and they're sick of hearing my stories. So so do I think that, I mean, we all just kind of got to figure out what our personal responsibility and level is from there. But I truly do. I mean, I'm putting my money in. I think EDC will happen.
Let's manifest it. Let's put it.
I know. I just decided, if I'm going to spend the money, I'm just going to put it out in the world, into the ethos that it's going to happen.
See, now, okay. I mean, we can definitely continue this conversation off the record too in a second, but the last thing I'll say too is like, it's just going to be fucking weird. It's going to be fucking weird for the next year to year and a half, because I get questions all the time. Like, is this happening? Should I book? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't even fucking know. Like, it's going to be a last minute send. You may have to make that decision for yourself, if you can book something and cancel it without a fee, or you can hold off on your flights. Like, I believe I'm type A. I hate that feeling right now. Like, normally all these things would be booked, Electric Forest, hotel or flights would be booked. Like, and I do not like the feeling of being like, it might have to be a last minute send, but that's just what it is right now. And the same thing goes for tickets. Like, to me as a fan, like the most concerning thing to me is like, is it going to be impossible to get tickets to anything? Which that very well might be a possibility, because when things start to be in the clear a little bit, it might be really hard. You might have to buy the deposits when they first come out or jump on things. But at the same time, it was
hard before that too.
Yeah, true.
I mean, E-Forest was
sold out in 30 minutes. Yeah.
EDC was sold out. Like, it was hard even before.
You can pick and choose your events for sure. Yeah. But no, I'm hoping, 100% hope EDC happens, but I think the next one that I was personally aiming for was Elements Lakewood, which I've never done. And Elements, I'm talking to the founders in a couple weeks on Festival Insider podcast to ask them how they've been able to do it, because they have had, I think, 2 events in 2020 successfully through multi-step COVID testing. So I feel comfortable doing that. It's Labor Day weekend, and I was mentally thinking that would probably be my first festival back. Obviously, I hope EDC and Electric Forest happens, but I do think there are safe ways to go about it. And like you said, I can quarantine. I can come home and just stay here and figure out ways to do it. But by September, I'm praying I'll be vaccinated by then, and then it will make it an even easier decision. But these are all very interesting conversations to have. I'm so glad we did this. How do you feel?
I feel great. I do. I'm hoping you enjoyed it. Your listeners enjoyed it. I love talking about this stuff. I do.
Same.
Events, it's weird to say, are such a big portion of I think both of our lives, and in different ways. But I think for a lot of people, they are. These are the places that we find like-minded people, or that you get your friend groups from all over the country together and to do, and so they hold a special place in a lot of our hearts, because of that. And taking that away for a year, again, I said it earlier, has brought a much better appreciation for that when we get to do that again. Benny wants to tell you his thoughts too. So, I hope that that's a lesson that we learn from all this, that continues, not only after the first event, but helps broaden the scene a little bit more, and again, for lack of sounding cheesy, spreads that plur culture a little bit more of knowing what it was like not to have it, and how easily it can be taken away by something, whether that be a global pandemic, whether that be just negative press in an area that shuts down a festival, that either puts people out of work, but just stops the scene in an area. So anything that we individually can do, and maybe that's just as simple as looking out for the person next to you, and spreading that goodwill and spreading that plur culture, a little bit, that keeps what we've built going, because it is kind of precious. And I think a lot of us have realized that it is precious, so
I love it.
That's
Thank you so much for being here, Brandon. This was, I genuinely this is definitely one of my favorite conversations I've ever had. We touched on so much stuff. In my head, I'm like, am I going to split this into 2, or should I have this as one giant episode?
I don't know. Well, the problem is you should have known me after this long that I can talk.
No, but I'm so here. No, and we just touch on such different things. But anyway, I will continue the conversation with you, Brandon. Hang tight. Everybody else, I will be back in a minute with EDM news.
Alrighty, you guys, we have finally reached the end of both of these parts. Thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you guys really, really enjoyed this episode. Definitely leave me feedback. I want to hear what you guys thought about this. Again, it's definitely a topic that I've had requested a lot, so I wanted to do it justice. And like I said, Brandon and I could have talked for hours, because this is a super interesting topic and it clearly hits home for me. So I was really, really excited to have him on, and I'm so thankful that he was so vulnerable and shared all his stories with us. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, check us out on Facebook, the raveculturecast community group, or you can leave comments on YouTube, but I really want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this topic. Okay, with all that being said, let's just jump right into EDM news. We got a couple things happening here, you guys. So first and foremost, Alesso and Armin van Buuren have a single coming out this Friday called Leave a Little Love. This is highly anticipated. You've got 2 major artists, so I know a lot of people are really excited about it, and I can't wait to hear how it sounds. There's a little teaser up on, I believe, both of their Instagram pages if you guys want to go ahead and check that out. Odessa also teased on Twitter on February 15th that they are working on something, we promise. That's what they said. So hopefully there will be a new Odessa album in the near future this year. We can all hope. Okay, and then I have a couple festival announcements that I want to get into here. The first one being Sxm Festival, which takes place in St. Martin. Typically in March is when it happens, but they did a post about 2 weeks ago. It says, looks like 2022 is going to be an awesome party. Until then, stay safe and stay tuned for the return of Sxm Festival. No surprise there. Unfortunately, it continues. We also had a Movement Detroit notification that they are canceling. They typically take place on Memorial Day weekend in Detroit. This is a primarily techno festival, house and techno, but basically they said it's not happening in May 2021. Big thanks to everyone who held on to their tickets and your unwavering support. The team is working hard to provide an update on future dates and ticketing options. We will be in touch next month with more information. So stay tuned. I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if they're going to even opt for a fall date, or if people, it seems to be, are pushing it back another year. I'm very hopeful that 2022 will be a normal festival season. That would be amazing. Okay, last big announcement, and I kind of want to go through a couple things here because I've already done a YouTube video on this and I just really want to follow up on it, and that is Ultra Music Festival. Yes, you guys, we have official word. Ultra has spoken. We haven't heard from them in like a year, but they've spoken. They've officially canceled this year's event. Obviously, I don't think anybody thought that was happening, but they are rescheduling Ultra for March 25th, 26th, and 27th, 2022. All valid tickets will be honored. So there's a lot. They sent an email, I believe. So if you guys are already, you had tickets and held on to them, definitely go check your email because you should have a notification from them at this point. Okay, so I want to read through a couple things because there were some announcements. So, okay, it says, rest assured, we eagerly await the opportunity to safely produce what will be the most memorable Ultra in our 22-year history. Next year, we will usher in a new and improved chapter in the Ultra history book as we unveil our first ever premium general admission offering. Current GA ticket, this is important, current GA ticket holders can upgrade to the premium general admission at no additional cost and with no additional purchase required. So if you guys have a GA ticket, you can get this premium GA experience, which is a new thing they're going to be offering next year. So I'm assuming, obviously, you know, if and when it goes on sale for 2022, if you never had tickets, you would have to purchase this premium GA offering. And I think there's some pricing on the next slide that I'll get into. It says as well, you will have the option to exchange, upgrade, and elect the benefits listed below for a future event subject to terms and conditions. To proceed, please click on the exchange, upgrade, and elect your benefits. So here were some of the other options. The free premium general admission upgrade. This is what it sounds like. Provided at no additional cost. Yes, I said that. Okay. A dedicated festival entry, access to enhanced, routinely cleaned, air-conditioned restroom facilities with private stalls in multiple locations throughout the venue, so much nicer bathrooms, and the PGA lounge, complete with a relaxation area and bar. The face value of this ticket is $599.95. So I feel like that's pretty standard. Like if you do a GA Plus, which is like now being offered at a lot of Insomniac events, it's usually a separate entrance, it's usually nicer bathrooms and things like that. So that's kind of like what the gist of what they're getting at here. So that's a nice perk if you held on to your ticket. They also have an Ultra merchandise discount, up to 50% off. This I actually thought was very intriguing. An extra Ultra hour. Exclusively in 2022, 1 hour before the gates opened, you will have the opportunity to enter the festival early and witness an unforgettable main stage performance from a festival headliner. So it doesn't say who, but I guess you guys will get an extra set is what it sounds like, which is a cool experience, especially if it won't be as crowded yet. I think that's pretty nice. Okay, this also was very interesting. A free ticket to Ultra Worldwide event. We're here to help fulfill your itch to travel by providing you with a free ticket to an Ultra Worldwide, including Resistance event of your choice, valid through December 30th, 2022 for each valid 2020 ticket purchase. So again, these are all upgrades you can choose. So you can choose the premium one for Ultra Miami. You can choose this ticket to an Ultra Worldwide event. That does say that it's subject to terms and conditions and it's limited quantity and subject to availability. So first come, first serve if you want a worldwide event. But it's an interesting choice. And then it says you'll be eligible to enter to win one of 10 Ultra Golden tickets. Winning one of these tickets will grant you a +1 guest. Winning these tickets will grant you +1 guest free lifetime access to any of our any of our events, I think, and Ultra worldwide, including Resistance events. So if you're lucky enough to win a golden ticket, that's pretty fucking amazing as well. But I mean, what are the chances of that? Who fucking knows? So anyway, they're gonna have general admission on sale for 2022 at some point. It looks like you can have the option to purchase that ahead of time. One thing to clarify here, there is no mention, as far as I am aware, of a refund. So there is no refund option still. I know that was a very big issue for a lot of people. I mean, at this point, I'm not surprised, but again, it's a really tricky situation because you also have to think about, like, a lot of these events and companies wouldn't stay alive if they had to refund every single person who wanted a refund. So it's probably keeping the lights on for Ultra that they're holding on to people's money. Is it the right thing to do? I don't fucking know. I don't think it's the best customer service experience. However, I think a lot of these options that you guys can pick are pretty cool. I think the worldwide option is really cool. I think the extra Ultra hour is awesome. And I think the premium GA experience is like the least they could do. So I think that's cool for anybody who is planning on holding onto tickets for 2022. And there you have it, guys. Ooh, very long-winded, but I wanted to make sure I covered all of that because I did a whole YouTube video about how we hadn't heard from Ultra yet. So here is the official word from them. And with that being said, I have one last piece of information of EDM news. This is a Wakan update that I thought was interesting. So if any of you guys like Wakan or the label or the festival, I thought this was interesting. I don't really listen to Wakan artists too much, but basically they tweeted this out today saying, I started Wakan to provide a home for artists that I love that didn't have a place to release music. Prior to the creation of this label, I was often told I would never fit in. They said it was too weird, too bassy, too noisy, not pretty enough. My tracks were turned down by almost every label in existence, so I decided to start Wakan. The ethos and philosophy behind the label is artistic freedom. I didn't want other artists to be misunderstood and have to conform. I've tried to protect them from the rejection and hurt that I previously felt. We support artists by giving them a consistent place to release their music and art as they envision it. We never want to dictate or control what artists create and what they title their songs. At times, I was asked to censor my music and my brand, and that never sat well with me. Recently, there has been a lot of commentary about drug references in songs we have released on Wakan. To be clear, Wakan, and I'm gonna butcher this, it's Sxm, sorry guys, does not support the use of any narcotic or the consumption of medicine not prescribed by a medical professional. We are fully aware that addiction of any kind is a disease and epidemic that plagues our culture. I know I often talk about community, but this is a very important topic for me. I have tried to create a safe place without judgment. It's important to me that we are inclusive of and welcoming to people from all walks of life in our community. Perspective and knowledge is how we grow and better ourselves. Constructive criticism, as long as it is handled with kindness and grace, is always considered and appreciated. I've always tried to look inward and take ownership of my role in every situation. Candidly, we are in a new territory. The landscape has completely changed over the past year, and in return, my and Wakan's position in it. This is definitely something we are going to discuss internally and try our best to figure out how to navigate moving forward. For those of you that I've offended or hurt with these releases, I now understand why. I'm sorry. We are doing our best to support our artists in this very unprecedented time, all while releasing the best music and giving people hope. My staff and I will continue to educate ourselves while spreading the message of inclusion and community. Thank you for your continual support through the good and the bad. We truly hope to share some beautiful, safe live experiences with you at some point. Much love, Martin. So I just wanted to share that because, again, like, I'm not super clued in on what's going on. I never had an issue with Wakan or any of their releases, but I gather there must have been a lot of conversations happening about drug references in some of the releases on the label. So I thought that was really well worded, and I can completely see where he's coming from about giving people artistic freedom, but just wanted to share that with anybody who is a fan or anybody who was aware of this happening, that update just came out. Okay, with all that being said, you guys, Thank you so much for checking out both of these episodes. I hope you enjoyed part 1 and part 2. And again, if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, definitely go back and check it out. Brandon and I covered a lot of topics that are near and dear to my heart, and I think are just good, whether you're an older raver or whether you're a raver like who's 18 who's listening to this podcast. It's good just to hear where you could go in the future. And there's a lot of valuable lessons and good laughs in there. So thank you all so much for sticking with me. I can't express enough my gratitude for you. I love doing this podcast so much and sharing people's stories. It truly brings me so much joy. So if you guys enjoy it as well, I would love it if you could share a link with a friend today. Share this to your Instagram stories and tag at raveculturecast. Rate and review on iTunes. It helps the podcast get discovered on the charts, you guys. So if you could write 2 sentences or just throw a couple stars, I really appreciate that today. And of course, come join our Facebook group community so I can meet you in our next Zoom call. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for listening, and I will be back next Wednesday with a new episode. Bye, guys.